Okay, so good evening, everyone. This is the Wednesday, November 18th, 2020 meeting of the Town of Austining Planning Board. Let's go around the screens and introduce ourselves. Sandy?
Sandy Anelli, Secretary.
Kathy?
Kathy Zalantis, Planning Board Attorney.
Gareth?
Gareth Huffam, Planning Board Member.
Valerie?
Valerie Menastra, Planning Board Consultant.
Donna?
Donna Sharrett, Planning Board Member.
Jim?
Jim Bosinas, Planning Board Member.
Dan?
Nancy Arcia, Consulting Engineer of the Planning Board.
Great, and I'm Ching Hua Chin, I'm the chair. The first item on the agenda is the Rinaldi subdivision, 39 Stormy Town Road, 10 lot subdivision, final subdivision review, continuing to public hearing. Is the applicant here?
Good evening. Yes, we're here. We have submitted new materials. Can you hear me well, or?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. We have submitted new materials, but we still don't have the plot plan from our surveyor. And so we had discussed it with our clients, and we decided the best was to, if we can request an adjournment until December 16 meeting, so we have the complete plot plan and be able to finish with the project.
Before we do that, Chairman, there is still one outstanding item that I think maybe might be worth discussing tonight, because if it changes again, then the applicant is going to have to revise their drawings. But right now, there was the issue of sidewalks, and where those sidewalks will be located is still up in the air. At some point, there was discussion about putting them on Stormy Town Road, and then the last revisions that I received removed them from Stormy Town Road. But I think it might be best at this point if maybe there is some sort of guidance or decision from the planning board as to whether those sidewalks should be included or not be included for Stormy Town Road.
Okay. Let's go around the screens here. Jim, do you have any comments on the sidewalks?
I've taken that walk along the road on the site on Stormy Town. I'd rather see the sidewalk there. It's kind of sketchy to walk that route and sit on the shoulder of on the road. I think the sidewalk would be beneficial for several safety reasons.
Okay, Gareth?
I agree. I think the sidewalk along there is important. And I think I said at the last meeting that I had walked along there and determined that the section of very steep slope toward the end of that, toward the east, the last 100 feet or so, is bedrock, so that they could chip that away, and I believe they would not have to build the wall that they were concerned about having to build. So I think it would be technically more feasible or easier than they thought it would be. But I think it should be there.
I'm sorry, Jim, what
Yeah.
your comments was that you thought that we needed the sidewalk, or we did not need the sidewalk?
I would like to see the sidewalk on Stormy Town.
Okay, I just wanted to make that clear. Donna, do you have any comments?
I agree. I would like to see it there also.
Okay, and I see no reason not to require the sidewalk there as well. Certainly over the issue about having it inside the cul-de-sac when the sidewalk's not nearly as useful. Potentially useful. Does the applicant need any more guidance on that issue?
No, I will discuss that with our client, and we will submit the proper changes or response.
Okay, Valerie, do you have any other comments at this time?
No, I think that was one of the last remaining items, as well as, besides the fact of the actual survey, but I think the other item that I also noted was that the landscaping plan has changed again. So that's something that the board might want to take a look at. They did remove a number of the trees off the slopes and rearrange some of the locations of those trees. So if the board hasn't had a chance to take a look at it, I would recommend doing so before next meeting, so we can also discuss that as well.
Okay, Kathy, do you have any comments at this time?
No, we just need the plat to be able to proceed. So,
Okay,
but obviously you want to resolve the issues, so the plat doesn't have to be revised.
Dan, do you have any other comments at this time?
We still have some outstanding comments. I spoke to the project engineer today, went through those with him. And also, pending resolving the sidewalk issue, we wanted a stormwater plan based on whatever the final configuration of the project and the amount of impervious that goes along with that. So I would say in the next iteration here, we could advance to getting the SWIP done, and obviously we're going to need a plat to advance it to the next step.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the last part of that. Could you repeat that, Dan? I'm sorry.
I just wanted to, reiterate that we really need the plat. I did speak to the project engineer about a number of issues, and there's still some outstanding stuff in my memos, but a lot of that hinges on, and I guess we've resolved the sidewalk issue to some extent, in that that'll impact the amount of impervious and how the stormwater practices have to be sized.
Okay, does the applicant have any responses at this time for the staff?
No, not right now, and I will address those issues with our clients.
Okay, any other comments from the board members? Donna?
Well, I'm still not satisfied with the choice of the trees. Is that they're all evergreens by tour view, which the existing inventory of trees, from what I can see, is deciduous, so it's not gonna look harmonious. And I also think that there's a lot of evergreens everywhere else, but I think just the ones along the road, so when you're on Stormytown Road, it would be better not to look like a wall of evergreens, so it would look a little bit more, again, harmonious with the feel of the town of Ossining. So if there was deciduous trees just in those, they could, you can put all those evergreens along the side of the things if he wants, but I think it's important to maintain a, kind of the look of our treed streets.
Okay. Jim, do you have any other comments at this time?
I just would also note that it doesn't seem like on lots 1 and 3 that there's trees by the street, so that maybe he could take some of the trees that he was planning on putting on the side of the lots to the front, to have a couple trees by the street.
Okay. Jim, do you have any other comments at this time?
No, not just that if the town ever has the opportunity, it'd be great to continue that sidewalk beyond this project.
Okay, Gareth, do you have any comments at this time?
No further comments.
Okay, so we'll have to continue this hearing. Is that correct? Mallory, Kathy?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, what date does the applicant want?
The next meeting is actually going to be December 16th.
Oh, right, because we're skipping one. Okay, so does the applicant think you'll have it ready for December 16th?
Yes.
Okay, could I have a motion to that effect to continue the public hearing
I'll make the motion.
until December 15th, 16th?
Yes.
I'll second.
Okay, Gareth, how do you vote?
Aye.
Donna?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
I would vote yes as well. Just to make sure, are there any members of the public that wish to speak at this time on this matter? Sandy?
I don't see anybody using the raising their hand, but no, I don't think anyone is here for this matter.
Okay, very good. So we'll see you next time. Have a good night. Next item on the agenda is the Borrego Solar System at St. Augustine Church, 381 North Highland Avenue, site plan review, battery storage system. Is the applicant here?
Oh, I'm sorry, one more. Someone had their hand up, Mr. Goldstein? Jeffrey Goldstein?
Yeah, hi. I'm sort of late to this, only because I saw it. I haven't really been following the whole project, but I'm one of the members at TourView. And I'm assuming that this has all been reviewed, and the decision of the planning board is that it doesn't impact adversely on TourView or its, existence as a club or impose on it. I'm really coming as a newbie to this, and I apologize. And I don't know if what I'm asking is even appropriate at this stage. So
Well, you look at the
I'll let you
record.
respond and
There were
and-
previous members of the TourView who were here and made comments, and I believe they were addressed.
And
And the planning board has been looking at,
excuse me, I'm sorry. There have been TourView members who have addressed this much in more detail.
I believe so, yes. And
Okay. Then I'll leave it up to
marked on the
those.
minutes as well, and you can,
I'll leave it up to those board members. We as the membership have not really gotten a report from them on it, but I'll raise that with them.
okay.
Thank you. I appreciate your
I
time.
believe they were satisfied, but, you can check with them and how they felt about it.
Okay.
Do you have
I
any?
appreciate your time. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the St. Augustine Church battery storage system. Is the applicant here?
Yep, Mike Conway's here on behalf of Borrego.
Great. And I
Good
see
evening.
you made up some new submissions. Should we start with Valerie? Do you have any comments at this time?
Yes, I do. There was I sent the board a memo outlining my comments. I just wanted to highlight a few items. First of all, the environmental review comments. The applicant did provide a revised environmental assessment form. And at this point, all outstanding environmental assessment form revisions are addressed. The threatened and endangered species, the applicant prepared and provided a habitat assessment report, which found that the proposed project will have no effect on any threatened or endangered species or habitat for those species. They did submit this report to DEC, and a response from DEC is still pending. In response to the archaeology on the site, the applicant is actually preparing a phase 1A/B report for the site to address the State Historic Preservation Office's comments. A review of that report will be conducted once a copy is received. So as soon as we receive that copy, we'll begin our review of it. The applicant has provided additional details on the road widths from last meeting. A 20-foot wide gravel driveway is proposed. John Hamilton, the building inspector, actually reviewed the proposed roadway and has a few questions to follow up on. First was, sorry, I think I'm hearing an echo. Oh, okay. First was for them to please provide the travel distance from the roadway to the nearest fire hydrant. John would also like the turning radius to conform with the Appendix D Fire Apparatus Access Road in the International Fire Code, and that the fire department should review the proposed turnaround to make sure that they're comfortable with what is on the drawings. And then also that the site driveway grade should not exceed 10%. The applicant also provided additional architectural details this round. The profiles identify dimensions of the batteries as well as their associated mechanical equipment. A 7-foot chain link fence is proposed, but one of the things that came up in our site visit the other day The planning board might want to specify the exact color of the fence and if the fence should contain slats. At this point, the drawings do not specify either. Landscaping has not been provided. However, based upon some of the site visit the other day, it seems that the applicant is potentially proposing to install additional landscaping. And I believe there might have been a landscaping plan that came in late this afternoon, so I have not reviewed it yet. But this is something that the planning board might want to discuss if landscaping is necessary, and if so, where would you like to have it installed? And then I know the Austining Fire Department has been provided copies of this particular site plan, but we have not received comments from them. So I think, again, we'll follow up with them on that because I think it's important for their review of this particular application. And then just two other things. The applicant did provide noise information this round, and it does adhere to the noise regulations found in Chapter 130 noise of the town code. And then also the applicant did provide information on lighting, and the lighting will not be problematic. They are not anticipating any additional continuous lighting, and there's some for the battery containers, which contain only 18-watt LED lights. And that sort of summarizes my review. And then there's a couple additional outstanding plans that they need to provide as part of the overall review process, which they're in the process of either providing those, which is the decommissioning plan, the operation and maintenance plan, and the emergency operations plan.
You're muted.
That concludes my report.
Chin, you're muted.
Right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I'm using a phone because my computer's audio is completely shot. So you guys were fading in and out while I was listening to you. Okay, just to make it clear, I was not able to join the site visit meeting. However, I did walk the site by myself on this past Saturday. Does the applicant have any responses to what Valerie has just said here before I get to the planning board members' comments?
I think the only thing that I'd add is that we provided a, I think what you'd call an illustrative plan of where we are likely to propose some vegetative screening or vegetative buffer. We are going to follow up with something that's more detailed, more complete to discuss the species that we're using there, and what we provided earlier this week was just to this past Saturday. So to the extent that the details in what we provided earlier this week are a little light, there's a more detailed version coming of that for next meeting.
Great. Okay, Dan, do you have any comments at this time?
No, we had a short memo dealing with we had a comment basically about the erosion control. There's an issue regarding the type of, I believe in one place it was referred to, one of the details was this had different, what was shown on the plan and what was called out on the, let's see. Well, I'm looking for that. Excuse me while I'm looking for that. I did have a question on there's going to be a couple of issues that come up on, it's a big issue on the fire prevention issues. And one of the questions I guess we'll have to talk to John about is the road grade, which is coming in at, right now shown at 15%. And I can see why the applicant did that. It's, it would be difficult to get it to 10%. And I think we need to talk to the folks at the fire department about the tolerances of their vehicles to go up and down those roads. The other question I had that came up was about the fire protection. And I guess the question is, in terms of, John raised the hydrant issue, are we supposed to be putting water on these things in a fire? How does that work? You guys have the built-in fire stuff. Should our fire department actually be spraying water on this equipment? I guess is my question to you.
It's not a recommended practice. We see in some areas that jurisdictions, some first responders of some jurisdictions do choose to implement that in their emergency response plans, but it's not a recommended practice from the manufacturers of these systems based on how it interplays with their the fire detection and suppression system that's integrated within the system itself.
Okay. And then just to get back to my memorandum, we have a stormwater plan pending. You guys are reviewing that, and I guess we'll get that. You provided the erosion control plan, but we will need a limited disturbance shown on that, providing and also indicating what the area of disturbance is. And I guess that may be subject to change based upon the grade solution to the access road, whether it's going to have to be something less than 15%. And then, yeah, the other issue is related. I guess it was one place, I think it's the same thing, the silt sock and the mulch tube, I think it's the same thing. So just, I guess, call it one thing or the other. But that's the extent of my comments on it.
Okay, does the applicant have anything more to respond to at this time before we get to the board members?
Not at this time.
Okay, Kathy, do you have any comments at this time?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you. Donna, do you have any questions or comments at this time?
Yeah, I have a few. So one is that something just came across with the environmental group and the Green Austining, which is the, it's the non-legislative environment group in Austining at large, about the issue of using low carbon concrete. Is that an option for the base?
It's actually not something I'm familiar with, but we can look into that.
Yeah, it's supposed to have a lot less, hence the name, and a lot less footprint. That'd be great. If you could just look into that. It's something that they've been floating around as a potential comprehensive plan issue. So that'd be great. And it's great that you guys are proposing to put plants in. So I guess you probably haven't spoken to them yet about that, correct?
I spoke to him briefly this morning about it. The church, that is. Based on, I spoke to them about the the views from from south of the system, and they agreed they'd like to see some visual screening on the south side as well. So I think that's what we'll plan to do. So the proposed visual screening, I think that resulted from Saturday's meeting, was on the northwest and west side of the system where it faces the water, and now we'll add some additional ones along the south side of the system where it's visible from other points on the church's property.
Right. So my question is that the way it's located, there is like a building, I'm not sure what it is, that would be looking down into that. So, because the structure is, the highest is 10 feet, correct? The highest part of your structure?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I know on the site walk, Mitzi Elks from the EAC was asking for evergreens and all. And as it turns out, in part of this process, we've discovered that there's honeybee hives on the property. So it'd be really amazing if somehow there could be screening that also served as like a pollinator friendly plant that would help those bees, because they have, I think, 10 hives or something. The challenge of that is that area does look like a you know, a deer-friendly place too. So I'm not really sure how you would meet both of those goals, that it would not be eaten by deer and only by bees. But I just thought I would put it out there because I think that would be really great for them. The bees and the church have something that would be multi-purpose like that. So it might not necessarily be evergreen. And, you know, the goal is at that one point, you're only needing to cover 6 feet. So it could be shrubs rather than big trees. Of course, the other side is being looked at from that building that's up higher. So maybe there, you know, you'd want to put something higher there. But if that was something that you could entertain, that would be really great. But being mindful that we have really hungry deer here, really, really hungry.
Yeah, we'll take a look into whether there's ever any overlap in the Venn diagrams of deer resistant but honeybee friendly.
Yeah, good luck. So my other question is the lights. I know they're on and off switch, but how about if someone left it on? Where are they? Are they facing the river or is it facing the other way? The on off switch, the lights.
Hey, Greg's joined now. I apologize for being late. I just got off another meeting, and Mike probably was able to answer this. But the lights, they're just right at the equipment pad area. They face completely down, only in the equipment pad area, and they are motion sensor, but only like, you know, they're not going to go on from a little bird or something like that, or, you know, squirrel. But they're right where somebody might need them if they do need to service the system at night. But really, they could switch them off themselves when they're there, but they won't turn on when just if nobody's there. And for the vast majority of time, nobody is there. So there won't be any running lights, and we don't anticipate any. And they're completely down, you know, zero shade, or I forget what the dark sky rated, and you know, they won't provide any light pollution to any of the surrounding areas.
Great. All right. Yeah, so my question was, is it on the side facing the hill or the side facing I would imagine it's the side facing the hill, correct? Anyways,
It's going to be right at the front. That's where the equipment pad area is. Okay. Yeah. You know, the battery's kind of in the back when you walk through the gate.
Right.
Those 2 areas toward the front.
Right. And then based on what Dan was saying, that was a question I was a little concerned is, and I'm not sure if this is in your purview, but it's like, when I was reading your, you know, and I didn't understand most of it, but the safety things, it was saying that the fire department has to right away put on like ventilation before I mean, you know, hopefully this is never, ever an issue, but so your experience do the fire departments have all that proper equipment? Is that something that's standard? Do you know, or, I mean, that's,
Yeah, I believe the fire department would have any of the ventilation masks required, and the, you know, the training that's provided, you know, before construction, after construction, continuously with the fire departments, you know, is pretty substantial, and you know, if it ever came to something like that, you know, the advice would be to stay outside of the fence and not, you know. They're not going to solve anything by running in with overheating batteries. So it's not something where you would ever really have somebody close enough, and the people that need to be trained on it will be trained. You know,
excellent.
Substantially.
Right. Thank you. And thank you for coming down and showing us around. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. It was good for me to see the site in the winter as well.
Yeah.
Jim, do you have any questions or comments at this time?
No, I'm good.
Gareth, do you have any questions or comments at this time?
Only about the potential use of slats on the 7-foot chain link fence. In my experience, those slats can be uglier than what they're supposed to be hiding. When you have a big, you know, 100-foot long rectangle of uniform green, it can be pretty bad. But wood slats can look okay, and they sort of gray out over time and get some variability. I would prefer wood slats if you can do it. Ideally, I would love to see sort of, you know, randomly alternating blocks of different colors, all natural colors, sort of, make it look like a woodsy setting. But that might be asking too much. But I would recommend wood over those green plastic slats.
Applicants, do you have anything to suggest on that?
Could look into it. I think we would probably defer to the church since they'll be primarily, their visual impact on it. And, if the church would like to see something specific, I think, we would provide the screening, landscape screening, which is better than, I would say, better than slats overall. And then, if the church wanted to see some, a different type of fence, I think we'd be, interested in looking into it.
What other kinds of fences would you consider, or would you recommend them as options?
I don't have any, specific options. I think we typically, use a chain link fence because it's easy to maintain and, lasts a long time and is simple. And, generally isn't out of the ordinary from what people are used to seeing. So we would usually just go with a chain link fence. I think when it comes to the battery storage, I'd have to look at, what type of fences are typical other than a chain link fence. So I'm not 100% sure what else we could go with. Mike, do you think do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was going to add one sort of experience from another project. It may not translate perfectly here, but we'll see when we get the comments from the fire department. But what we've experienced in the past is that although it's not recommended that first responders of the fire department enter within the fence, we have heard that they do have a preference to be able to see what's going on in there. And so on past projects, we've had one or two sides slatted or stockade fence or something other than chain link, but for the from the angle that the first responders are going to approach from, we've let that open so that they can see what's going on inside there, which depending on which slatting we use would be obstructed if we went with something like that. So I think we can look into all of those things. It's not if the fire department is okay with us using slatted, we're definitely not opposed to it. But I'd recommend that we get their take on it as well when it comes to being able to approach the system and view it from the outside.
Yeah, certainly leaving one side open seems prudent for the reasons you mentioned. The screening, I think, is most needed from the west. So that's debatable. So anyway, I agree. At least one side should be open visually.
Okay, Sandy, when you're contacting, when the fire department does have a response to this project, could you sort of mention the fact that this was raised up for them to see what their interest in that would be?
Yes.
Thanks. Okay, so Kathy, Valerie, what's our next step on this matter?
I mean, I don't know if it's ready to go to a public hearing yet, or you want to go through
Doesn't
another.
sound like it. Close. It sounds like we're getting really close here, but is it really worthwhile doing a public hearing? I don't think so at this point, right? What from the applicant?
I think it's close enough.
Jim said he thinks it's close enough.
Okay, so the
At this
applicant.
point, we're debating, fence material and planting types. So, I mean, I think we're close enough that we can move it forward if you're comfortable with that.
Okay, does the applicant feel like they're ready?
Yeah, we'd love to proceed with public hearing. I'm sorry I missed the beginning of the call. We did move forward declaring lead agency already. Did that happen?
No, that has not happened yet.
Oh, okay. All right. Is that something that we would consider doing today as well?
The board can do
Yeah.
that today if they like.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I guess, I don't know, we typically can't act on, any sort of approvals without having the seeker timeframe, met, at least providing it like a neg deck. So I just didn't want to move forward with something like without making sure we have the correct timeline. But we're definitely happy to have a public hearing at the next meeting. We definitely can be prepared for that.
Okay, does the rest of the board, just polling without me taking a vote right now, Donna, how do you feel about a public hearing at this point?
It seems like it's minor things that could be worked out. I mean, it seems like it would be fine.
Okay, all right. And Gareth, you seem like you're okay with it as well?
Sure.
Okay, so Valerie, Kathy, what's our next step if we want to go ahead and schedule a public hearing for this?
So I guess the next meeting date would be December 16th, right? So a public hearing could be set for December 16th.
Very good. Okay, can I have a motion to that effect?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Great. Gareth, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
I'm okay with it as well, yes. So we'll schedule you folks for the 16th. What do we have to do with the lead agency matter? Valerie?
The 30 days has passed, so, you can technically declare yourself lead agency, but no other agency has objected to it. So at this point, it's the 30 days. As soon as the 30 days passes, you become lead agency anyhow. So.
Okay.
I apologize. I misunderstood. So the letters did go out already then. So that's the waiting, the time frames
Yes.
that I was talking about are negligent. So, okay. I appreciate that. Sorry, I misunderstood. So yeah, we're all set there. Thank you.
Okay, are we set for this matter then? For the 16th, anything else we need to do at this time? Kathy, Valerie?
No.
Nope. Great. Okay, have a good night, folks.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is Park Knolls LLC Residential Development. I'm sorry, did somebody say so?
No.
Yes,
Okay.
Anthony Beldotti here, representing Park Knolls.
Okay, 87 Hawks Avenue, amendment to the resolution of the site plan approval. So Valerie, what was the status of this matter?
This particular application, I think the board, we discussed at the last meeting that the board will need to hold, I believe, a public hearing on this because, correct me if I'm wrong, Kathy, because it's an actual amendment to the approved resolution. I have prepared for the board a red line version of the amended resolution based upon the applicant's request. So this isn't necessarily the final resolution, but this reflects the applicant's request at the last meeting, which the board seemed amenable to look at and to discuss a little bit further. I wanted to make one note that there is an error in the resolution. It's just a minor. It refers to building 2, and instead it should refer to building 1. That was something that Anthony Beldotti pointed out to me over a recent email. But for the most part, the resolution itself reflects the applicant's request.
Is that changed? Is that typo on page 7 on the red line?
Yes, it is on page. Okay. Yeah, instead of the 14 apartments on the 2nd floor in building 2, it should be building 1.
Okay. All right, why don't we start with applicants? Why don't you explain the position and why this request came in?
basically, in essence, our liability insurance carrier will not allow us to have anyone on site without a certificate of liability insurance insuring us. So the only way we can do this is if we have a temporary certificate of occupancy for the building, we can then begin showing completed apartments within the structure and have the necessary insurance. And we're not really occupying the building because that's a second phase in our request. So what we're requesting is first a certificate of occupancy for the building and then certificate of occupancies for the apartments. We would complete the apartments on the first floor first, which are 10, and then the second floor second, which are 14. We are sufficiently along in the process, and we have several photos that we took and we would like to share with the planning board if that's possible. And they can look at the status of the construction. I think both Valerie and Donna has had a site walk and they saw some of the construction in place. One of the items that was of contention was the pool, and that is now substantially completed. The pool deck has been poured. All the sidewalks around the pool have been completed. The equipment room is installed. The only item remaining is the plastering of the pool inside, which cannot be done until next year, because once you plaster that pool, in order for it to cure properly, you must fill the pool and maintain that pool in a filled condition. So that is the remaining portion of the work to be done on the pool. As I said, the equipment room is totally completed, so that's also done. The sidewalks around the pool are also done. Everything is backfilled around the pool and graded. All our curbs are in, and most of our paving is completed, but and the inside of the building is substantially completed. Also, building number 2, all the exterior of the building is also completed, and the trades are working on the inside roughing of building number 2. The plumbers are completely roughed through the 3rd floor. The HVAC is completed through and up to the 2nd floor. The fire sprinkler systems are under construction within building number 2. And in fact, I submitted today to the building department a certificate of compliance for building number 1, which is the fire sprinkler system is fully activated. In building number 1, the heating system is fully activated. All the lighting, all the electrical panels, all the gas panels, the boilers and everything. So we're moving along very well, but we really need to begin starting to market the project. We haven't put up a sign because of that. We did not want anybody entering the property and falling or getting hurt without proper insurance. So this is why we're coming to the board to request a modification or amendment to the site plan resolution.
Okay. Before we take a look at the photos that you want to show us, Dan, do you have any comments at this time?
It was out there, I guess, a couple of weeks ago, and I concur with the site conditions as Tony described them. Some of the stuff wasn't completed when I was out there. Certainly, the pool being an important benchmark on this job, I think it's fair to say that he's advanced that as far as he can without filling the pool. And obviously, I think the intent of that condition was that you didn't want a developer not fulfilling his recreation obligations prior to people occupying the building. And obviously, nobody's going to be going in the pool for the next few months, so we're not cheating any future residents out of usage of that pool. Because I think that's really where this condition sort of came from. So I would say, you know, from my perspective, I have no objection with these amendments that are proposed.
Okay. Kathy, do you have any concerns or comments at this time?
Sorry, no, I don't have concerns about the request as long as Valerie and Dan are satisfied. I just want the process to be followed. That was just my initial concern. And because it is an amendment to a site plan resolution issued by this board, we do need to proceed with the public hearing. And after the public hearing, the board can consider granting the proposed amendment.
Okay, so is this in the status of a public hearing currently?
No,
Okay, so we have to schedule it for a public hearing.
correct.
Okay, are there any members of the public currently here who are interested in speaking? Sandy?
No, not here for that. No.
I don't see
Okay.
anybody with their hand raised.
Okay, do any members of the board have any comments or questions at this time? Donna?
Yeah, I just had one thing. So first of all, thank you so much for hosting us out there, Valerie and I. I appreciate that very much. And it did look like it is proceeding very well. When I left, I was thinking about the side, I guess it would be the north side, where there's, we were talking about where the vines are on the trees of the I guess it's Deerfield, or is the next property over. So you were saying that is on their property, those trees with the vines and all?
Yes.
Yeah. And then when would you be planting your trees in that area?
Well, we cleaned up that area right up to our property line within the last week or so. But we couldn't go any further because we can't trespass on Deerfield's property. We'll be finishing the plantings for building number 2 during the final phases of interior construction of that building.
That's number 2, the one we're talking about?
Yes,
Okay.
and
So,
prior to any certificates of occupancy and so forth being given.
Right. Now, so you did say, if I remember correctly, that you had approached them and they didn't seem interested in maintaining their trees, or am I not correct on that? Or have they been approached, I guess I should ask?
Yes. In fact, I've approached them on some of the, prior to this, some of the trees that have been weak or not surviving and so forth. And what we did is we had an arborist come in, he assessed the trees, and we then submitted that assessment to the building department. The building department looked at it and agreed with it. And then we went to the board of Deerfield and requested if we could go on their property and remove those dead trees. And they allowed us to do that at our cost.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we did remove several trees that were on the property line. Now, these trees were marked as saved when the site plan approval was done. But as we looked at them closer, they were in declining condition.
Right. So my concern is that the ones that have the vines on them are, will, in the near future be in bad shape too. So it impacts their screening, but it also impacts what your residents are going to be looking out at also.
As I said, we cleaned up that area this week up to our property line. Okay, so if you stop by there again, you'll see a clear path, fully cleaned with all the vines that were growing in that area on our property cut.
Right. And how does it look beyond that? What's on theirs? Is it
looks pretty good? It looks
Okay,
pretty
good.
good now.
Okay, good, because that's
It
the
looks
screening.
clean and orderly.
Excellent, okay, because that's what's, you know, for both of your property and their property, that was important.
We looked
Okay,
at
great.
both.
Great, that's my, that was my comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, do you have any questions or comments at this time?
This is I think, a legitimate hardship for the applicant. So, you know, I'd like to, I mean, I still want to make sure that we have some guarantees that the project, you know, reaches 100% completion before they get final CO, but I think we should schedule the public hearing so we can move forward with this.
Okay. Gareth, do you have any questions or comments at this time?
No,
Gareth?
I'm in favor of granting the request.
Great. Can I have a motion to open up a public hearing for this then?
I'll make the motion.
Okay,
Second.
so this would be for December 17th?
Sorry, motion.
16th?
Motion was to schedule the public hearing, right?
Yes,
For December 16th. Yeah, sorry.
yes.
16th. Okay, second, who second?
I'll second.
Okay, Gareth, how do you vote?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes,
Jim?
Yes.
I agree as well. Okay, so we'll see you back here on the 16th December. Okay,
Thank you very much for your time.
great. Good luck.
Good luck.
Okay, that's the end of our agenda for the items, regular items. We have a miscellaneous item. Mr. Fussell for the Rayford, Davern and Sons, 50 Old Albany Post Road, amendment to the ARB approval. The applicant here?
Yes, I am. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Valerie, do you want to explain what happened here?
Sure. The building inspector issued a violation on the property. Construction took place of a patio and a stairway. We requested additional information on what was constructed. The construction itself does not adhere to what was approved prior to the ARB. We asked the applicant to come back before this board. There are still a couple of outstanding items. One, if you'll notice on the survey, the stairway actually encroaches on the neighboring property. So the applicant will need to create an easement agreement between him as well as the neighboring property. And that will be something that needs to be reviewed clearly by Kathy. So right now we sent along the information that we have thus far from the applicant, and with the thought of you at least being able to opine a little bit tonight, and then to discuss with Kathy what's the next steps in the process, whether this needs to go back for a public hearing, whether it can be considered approval to their site plan, like a minor amendment, or does this board have an issue with what was done to begin with? So it's really, at this point, just open for discussion.
Okay, just to be sure, are there any members of the public on this matter here present today? Sandy?
I don't believe anybody's here for this particular application.
Okay. Kathy, do you have any comments at this time?
I mean, I'd like to have a better understanding of the scope of what the applicant is seeking, because I think if it rises beyond minor changes, that it would need an amendment to the prior approval, and would have to go through the same process of a public hearing.
Okay, my understanding from looking at the diagrams was that there's a staircase right adjacent to the property line, which was not in the original plan. Is that correct? Applicant?
Yes, so if I can speak a little.
And in addition to that, you added a patio that was not in the original plans as well?
Yeah, so here's what I did. So as we were doing the site work back there in the wall, we were hoping that we could get a little glimpse of that river, because it's such a beautiful view. And then as we were up there, we noticed that elevation that we could see the river, and it's a beautiful, beautiful view, sunset. So I called the engineer. I asked Mr. Noviello, I said, Matt, if we were to do a patio here, would we need to apply for a permit to do that? And he said, well, in fact, as long as you don't do, as the retaining wall isn't over 4 feet and it's just a natural patio, you shouldn't have to go for a permit. So, my son and I were talking.
Well, stop right there for a second there. Valerie, is that correct? Kathy, Valerie, is that correct information that he allegedly received?
That I don't, at this point in time, John issued the violation based upon what was there on the site. Ultimately, he'll end up having to work it out with the building department, whether they need to actually pull a building permit for what they did. I would assume definitely for the stairs. I mean, I'm not an expert. Dan, you might be able to weigh in on this, but I would assume the stairs would definitely need a building permit.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see constructing a stairs wouldn't require a building permit. I mean, perhaps some patio, but even I would think a patio would require a building permit.
Right. Those stairs are pretty extensive.
Because
the stairs definitely would require, the wall maybe under the 4 feet. I don't know that it's shown. We sort of have a hodgepodge of submittals we got of pictures and an as-built survey, but ultimately it comes down to that this was nothing that was contemplated on the site plan that this board reviewed.
Yeah, it was kind of after the fact. So after speaking with Noviello, we honestly didn't realize that, it would require a site plan amendment because, it was a natural patio and we weren't going to do a high wall, and behind that wall is all ledge rock. So, we figured it would be a really nice thing to do for the homeowner that you sit out there at sunset and you look over and it's beautiful. And I want to clarify one thing too. In my narrative, I didn't state that actually correct, because when John and I were discussing this, my son John, I happened to see Gareth out there and I ran it by Gareth. And, I said, Gareth, what would you think about that? He said, well, that would be a great idea and I would support you in a board meeting. So when I wrote, it was advised by Garrett, that was not the way it probably should have said. But I consulted with Garrett and he gave me his opinion, and then we both thought it was a really nice thing to do. So the problem we ran with the stairs was the original stakes for the house were set, and it appeared as though the neighbor's fence was their property line, but that was just a setback statement. So when we did the stairs, we didn't even think about it.
Wait, before you go any further on this, when you were talking to Gareth about this, was there any impression in your mind that what Gareth said was going to be binding on the planning board?
No, not at all. Not at all. In fact, I didn't think I would. I really didn't think I'd have to go to the planning board because I talked to the engineer before I even did anything. So that's, when he told me you don't need a permit, that's when we did it. But as John told me, John Hamilton said, look, you have an open permit here and you're doing something that's not on the site plan. Whether it would require a permit or not, you're in violation because you're doing something on an open site plan. I was like, oh, good Lord. I wouldn't have done that. Believe me, I don't want to create any hardship for, these people that are waiting to get in this house. And I only did it, and it was expensive to do, but I just did it because I thought it'd be a nice thing to do for the buyer.
Well, I have another question about whether they can move into the house without you having a nice patio.
Well, they could have moved in, but it was a really nice addition to that hill back there, because the way it was really unusable and no one could see that river. So that's why we did it.
That's fine, but I'm asking whether the owners could have moved into the house without the patio and without the stairs.
Sure, and I would have saved $10,000, but I just thought it was a really nice thing to do. So where my son put the stairs was a mistake until we got the as-built survey. So I do have the neighbor, we had an easement drawn up. She gave us the agreement to do the easement. She has it. She's having it notarized, and it'll be filed within a couple of days at the county office building, but she had no objection to the easement because she said someday she wants to put a patio back there herself. So therefore they could use the stairway too. So that was very nice of her, because if not, we would have moved the stairs, which would have been a real major undertaking. But
do you have a copy of the executed easement at this point?
I haven't gotten it back executed yet. That's what she's doing as we speak. She said that I'll probably have it on Friday, and if not on Friday, Monday or Tuesday.
And the language of the
I gave a
easement has
draft.
not changed since the version you sent us. Is that correct?
Oh, no, nothing's changing. That's it. So I sent the actual
Okay.
easement that's being notarized and signed. But she would have signed it
Okay,
right away, but then it needed.
Kathy, have you had a chance to look at that easement?
I haven't honestly, because we just got this information.
Yeah, I know. I'm
I
just,
understand. Okay. So,
ladies and gentlemen, I'm just trying to help these buyers out because they're renting, their rent expired, and now they got to stay in a hotel. I told them, look, Con Ed just did the gas line last week. There was nothing I can do to push this any further, but now we have this issue we got to resolve. So I appreciate you guys even entertaining me tonight. It's just, I'm tremendously indebted for you guys to do that. But we did a real nice job on it. I think it's a really nice addition to the home. It was total unusable property back there. So, I'm sorry, but I guess my engineer kind of gave me a little bad advice. And, I told him I have to go through this now. And he said, well, I'm sorry you got to go through this. I didn't think you would have needed a permit for it. But lo and behold.
okay, Gareth, you have some question or comment at this time?
Yeah,
Gareth?
so just want to add that John is correct that when he asked me to come over and take a look at the patio that he built, he did point out that John had issued a violation, and I did at the time tell John that when it comes back before the board, because he said it would probably have to come back before the board because of the violation. I said, when it comes back before the board, I will support it verbally because I like it. I think it's a good idea. It adds a lot to the property. That said, I was not aware that the steps were on the other property or encroaching on the other property. That is a major problem in my view. While the neighbor who is apparently okay with signing an easement, it seems really inadvisable for that neighbor. It'll lower the value of their house having their stairs encroached upon by a permanent easement. So what I would really like to see is somehow the patio being, okayed, because I think it's a good thing, but that they be required to move the stairs and be disallowed or discouraged from going through with the easement. I think that's unfair to the neighbor. I think it benefits John at the expense of the neighbor. If they want to continue going that route, I would say that the neighbor should ask for a reciprocal easement to use those stairs in perpetuity.
Yeah, that's the way it is.
Kind of,
There's two easements so that the neighbor has full use and the homeowner has full use.
oh, okay, good. I didn't know about
no,
the
we covered
reciprocal
that.
one.
Absolutely.
Well, so that changes it in my view. That seems like an even exchange. So I'm okay with it.
And we also redid our fence for her as just a way of saying thank you. She's really happy about it. And I think the project itself came out really, really nice. The house is pretty. Both of those houses came out really nice compared to what it was when we started. It's been a tough time for us, and we just want to get it closed up.
Just for the clarification, is there a particular type of easement that's necessary for building a set of stairs on encroaching? Kathy or Valerie?
I mean, it looks like they did a mutual easement. I just quickly brought it up while Mr. Fussell was discussing it. So, but I want to just study this proposed easement agreement a little bit more closely.
Okay. No, I mean, I was just noting that when I was reading the easement, that it was a general ingress egress one, which under some circumstances, I understand, might not include building something on it. But I'm leaving it up to you once you had a chance to actually review the matter.
Yeah, I mean,
on top of that,
I think you're right. It should be more specific to say, you know, for purposes of using it as a stairs and not, and keeping it free of encroachments. But I didn't draft this easement.
no,
I mean, honestly, I still think that it would be better to move the stairs over by 2 feet and have the two properties mutually unencumbered. But that's just me.
The problem with that, Garrett, because I would have done that right away. The problem with it is the stairs go right up against those stone walls. And now that the site's complete, I can't get a machine in there. Or I would have just done that. So, you know,
John, you do realize that these mistakes are basically due to your planning.
Yes, Chet, I do.
Okay.
I feel 100%.
But on top of it, going back to Kathy and Valerie, for this matter, is there any suggestion that this might have to be something before the Zoning Board of Appeals?
And I was actually wondering about that, if it violated setbacks, but I was trying to just keep that thought to myself, not to create another issue, but I don't know.
Well, we might as well have these issues out beforehand, right? Okay. So that's something that the applicant is going to have to worry about on top of us opening up this for a public hearing.
Right. I mean, I can ask John, I can go back to John Hamilton and to get his interpretation of the stairs, whether it's going to need a zoning variance, and to make sure that there's no other additional permits that are required because of the slopes that the stairs are located on as well.
Yeah, we built them to code with the, the risers at 7.5 inches or whatever they are. But I don't see any reason it would need a variance.
I mean, I don't know
Anyway,
if there's setback requirement.
Yeah, well, why don't we wait for the results before we worry about what your engineer told you, John?
Yep.
Jim, do you have any questions or comments at this time?
Where do we begin? If the neighbor's comfortable and Kathy's comfortable with the agreement, I tend to be comfortable with the location of the stair. I think while we're waiting on everything else, John should do a review and just make sure there isn't anything else that comes up with this, whether it's lot coverage, setbacks, or anything else. Let's just make sure that the legal issues are addressed before we move forward. But I think it's kind of quirky cool in the back, so I can completely understand why they wanted the patio there. I think it's going to be a cool little spot to sit. I'm not against it in any way. I just think we just need to address the legal issues.
Okay, Donna, do you have any questions or comments at this time?
Yeah, so I'm just wondering if the violation was issued on June 23rd, why it took this long to come to us and it had to come like in a day. Like, so we didn't really have much time to look at it. Like, why was there a rush when there was all those months ago the violation was issued?
Well, in the interim, we got a buyer for the house, and then Con Ed came out and did the gas. I waited 4 months for them. So then, the house is pretty much finished. So, the buyer is anxious to get in.
Yeah, that doesn't really answer my question. If you had an issue with a violation, and now you can't get the equipment in and all, it's sort of putting it in the opposite order. I personally do not like the look of it, and I worry about the. So I feel like if that came to us in the proper order, there would have been issues that would have been addressed from an ARB perspective. I don't think that little railing fits in, and there was such great effort to get you to use natural stone in the front, and it's like there's all these issues. Plus, it looks like there's a really steep slope right behind that wall, and there's no vegetation there. So I'm not sure how that's not going to be like a mud fest at some point.
So ledge rock back there. I had one of the most
Soil?
difficult sites you can imagine, and I put 2 really nice houses there. And I think anybody in the neighborhood would compliment the work we did. The patio's done out of natural stone. The wall I had to use.
Well, it's not, I just think that we would have had a discussion about it. And I just, personally, I take offense that it was like put in yesterday and then we have to talk about it today when you got the violation June 23rd. So it's,
you guys
I think
work.
that's really not right.
You're there to try to help.
That's my comments.
You're there to try to help everybody. I mean, if I could do it, I would. So, it's been a nightmare project anyway, but at the end of the day, there's 2 nice houses there, 2 nice families that are, going to live in those houses for a long time. And it's just, it's been a frustrating situation.
Well, just as a comment for the public is, at any time an applicant discusses a matter and asks for an opinion outside of a public meeting from one of the board members, they should never have the sense in any way that that one member, even if it's the chair or even if there's 2 members, that they speak for the entire board, especially if this matter has already come before the board and has been already decided upon, right? You went off on yourself and changed the plans without consulting the planning board again. Now, the patio idea might have been perfectly fine. And if you had given us time to go and discuss the stairwell, and you had planned the stairwell better, you might have been able to put it in a better location. At this point, you've actually risked your applicant, the owner, having to tear down the entire thing if this planning board rejects your new submission. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do. I do.
All right. What's our next step on this? Valerie, Kathy?
Well, it wasn't a site plan approval, but it was an ARB approval. And he was authorized to build in accordance with that ARB approval. And there's been I think, a pretty dramatic difference to the plan that was approved by the ARB. So, unless you feel like it's not a minor improvement, I would recommend that this be set down for a public hearing. At least that ensures that there's notice to the neighbor, that they're clear about what's happening. So we haven't even heard from the neighbor. And we consider granting an amended ARB approval. But I am concerned about whether this is opening the door to other potential issues. Like Valerie said about, do they now need a steep slope waiver? Do they need a variance for setbacks? I mean, it's hard, and without really having a chance to analyze it, because we got it yesterday, it's hard to know if there's other potential issues that are going to come into play from this.
All right, so we definitely can't make a decision without having a public meeting at this point, because that certainly would freeze out all of these other steps that have to be taken. Do we have a motion to put it on a public hearing? Anyone? Did we lose Jim?
I think you did.
Oh. Okay, that's awkward. We still have a quorum, but that's not good. Well, all right. Gareth, you're muted.
If we have a quorum, I would make the motion to bring it to a public meeting, a public hearing, as soon as possible.
Well, okay. Donna, how do you feel?
May I just ask Kathy and Valerie if this is going to be difficult for you if we're doing the public hearing? If we're scheduling this now, is that seem like the correct order of things? Like that you can address the steep slopes and the setbacks and all of that?
Luckily the meetings December 16th, so that's the next available here, meeting date. So I think that, I mean, unless Valerie disagrees, that gives us some time to circle back with John and
Yeah.
ask him about
Okay.
the other potential issues.
Okay, great. Then I would second.
Okay, since Jim's not reconnected. Gareth, how do you vote?
Yes.
Donna, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, I would vote to put it on the meeting schedule as well. Okay, so John, I hope you will come back with a full. Yeah, all right. I hope you'll come back with a complete application that's properly thought out this time.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. If I take the thing down, does this go away? It's not right. I'm going to take it down. I don't care. I'll take the stairs down. I'll take the patio down. I'll move on. I'm done.
That's between you. That's between you and your client, your customer.
Could I make a suggestion along those lines? Would it make a difference if John removed the stairs, left the patio intact? Because the stairs, I think, are the main problem. Would he be able to get a C of O and then apply for, putting a staircase in somewhere else later on?
Well, the problem with that whole approach is that the patio still has to be addressed. Even if we took out the stair issue, and the stair issue is there right now, right? So he can go and take it off, but we'd still have the patio to think about, and we haven't had time to think about the patio. So are you, Gareth, you took a quick look at it, and you like the idea. I understand that. Donna says she's not particularly thrilled with what it looks like. You do realize that if we took a vote right now on that patio, I would be the deciding vote, assuming that was the issue.
So, yeah, I mean, if you want my view on the design of the patio, I would have preferred a natural stone wall, hands down. But it's pretty far away from any public view. So I think that it's not such an issue. So, I mean, had it been done in the proper order, I think I would have done my ordinary twisting of arms for a natural wall. But other than that, I think it's fine.
May I ask something? So I know when the other wall was done, Dan was brought in and, looked at plans and made sure that it was going to be structurally sound and all that. So this didn't have any of that, right?
No, it didn't have any of that. And in fact, we have no public input as well. There was no ability for the public to.
But no
I mean, he didn't get a
engineering
building
review.
permit for it, so.
Right. No engineering
Nothing
review
was
or
reviewed.
anything, right? Right. So
It was built without a permit.
So it seems like that's a liability issue too. It could be. I mean, I just, and that's not my wheelhouse, but I'm just saying it raises flags.
If that house was sold and a homeowner was living in it, with the exception of the stairs, from what I understand now, they could build that patio and they would not need a permit or require anybody else's opinion to do anything on their backyard.
Well, it may not have risen to the level of a separate ARB approval, but I doubt they could have built a patio without a permit. I mean, Dan, am I wrong about that? I mean, that's a pretty significant patio that he's trying to say doesn't need a building permit.
Dan, are you still there, Dan?
There I am. Just unmuting, be patient with me. I mean, I think a patio typically doesn't require a building permit if it's, built in a backyard on grade, but the rub here is the staircase and the retaining walls.
Yeah, it's a retaining wall
Those
patio.
things, at a minimum, the stairs, the railings and all that could trigger a building permit. And I guess I'm not certain what the actual height of the wall is.
It's 4 feet. We didn't go over 4 feet with it because you didn't need a permit or engineering on a wall that's not 4 feet, and that's not higher than 4 feet.
Well, the point I think at this stage is that we're not likely to have a vote either way tonight, John. So you might as well go back and have a proper application if that's what you and your client wants to do. Whatever you choose between you and your client is not the matter of before this board, okay? This board doesn't have to worry about the fact that we have to have a public hearing. We have to have more discussion about what was apparently ignored in the process of your construction, including the fact that you just didn't bother asking for a permit for something that definitely needed a permit, the stairs, for instance. And even if the patio didn't require one, it's no question that it was something subject to this planning board discussion about whether it would fit the ARB. So,
to your point, Mr. Chair, the building inspector has apparently issued a violation that he acted in violation of the ARB approval. So
right, and there's no reason why this board should not just accept that code violation as it stands. We right now have a motion that I believe we're willing to accept having the December 16th date for a public hearing. John, are you telling me that you don't want that date?
You know what I would like to do, if possible? I'd like to meet out there with John and ask what he would require in order to be in compliance with the building department. If it's not too extensive, I'll certainly comply. If it's something that's just too much, I'm gonna take it out.
Well, I think for sure, one of the things he's going to say is that the ARB needs to approve what you're proposing. So if we don't call for a public hearing tonight and schedule one, then the next time you'll be able to discuss with this board about scheduling a public hearing will be on December 16th.
I mean, maybe you could work something out that if you do certain things, you can get a TCO subject to getting ARB approval. But that's I don't know. That's between you and you need to. He gave you a violation right now. That's currently, and as Donna pointed out, it was back in June. So why are we here in November trying to resolve this and getting something the day before?
I'm just trying to get these people.
I understand, but you had a lot of months to try to resolve this prior to today.
There was no urgency until now, so.
Right, but.
Wait, there's no urgency until now? Really?
Well, Jim,
okay.
You gotta.
We have a motion that's on the table to grant the hearing on the 16th. John, do you want that date? In which case, we'll put it on the schedule. If not, you can just tell us now and we won't worry about it. Whatever you manage to do outside of the planning board is fine. I mean, it's up to you, not fine. It's just up to you, whatever you can accomplish. But right now, the planning board is considering giving you a date of December 16th. Do you want us to put it on the schedule?
Yeah, you can put it on the schedule and then I'll go out there and see what John has to say. And if it's
very good. Okay, so Sandy, we'll tentatively put it on the December 16th. Any other matters that we have to do for this? Valerie, Kathy?
No.
Very good. Okay, have a good night, John.
Good night.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda, I believe, is the minutes. Unfortunately, I don't seem to have a copy of it in front of me. Do you folks? Do you mind dealing with it next time? Gareth, Donna?
That'd be fine. Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
So we'll just adjourn for the next meeting to vote on the minute. Any other matters we have to discuss at this time? Valerie, Dan, Kathy, Sandy?
No.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Gareth?
I'll second that motion.
Okay. I think that means, and then we'll assume that Belmont is still here. Is there a reason? Do you have any questions, comments? And also, oh, I see two people here. Any comments from the public on this matter? Or just you folks are just watching? It's always nice to see an audience, I suppose. Okay, so Gareth, how do you vote?
Yes.
Donna, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote for it as well. So thank you all. We're adjourned.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Have a good night, all.
Yeah.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.